Construction industry workers are urging the government to take action against the construction mafia, a group that is responsible for sabotaging both private as well as public infrastructure projects across the country. Now, these gangs are said to use mafia-style tactics to take over construction sites and demand money as well as protection fees from contractors. To further this discussion, we are joined by Gundo Maswime, who is University of Cape Town's civil engineering lecturer. Gundo, a very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So you have done extensive research, right, on the trend that is often referred to as construction or protection mafias. What have you uncovered in your research?
Thank you. I think the most important thing to note is that as much as the phenomenon is intensified, it's not as widespread as we thought. There are many regions in the country, especially the more rural areas, municipalities, smaller municipalities, where some have never even experienced the phenomenon. Others, it started, but they were able to contain it because the mayor or the municipal council was able to bring together the business forum and keep them together and recognize them formally. But where it has intensified in bigger cities and peri-urban municipalities, city of Cape Town, there has been tendencies where the employer does not really trust the engineers they have appointed. Where they are starting to suspect there's collusion. There are also instances where they are colluding with politicians in other parts of the country. So it's a very difficult thing for engineers, especially those with leadership positions on projects, because they are now really threatening not just them, but also their families. But over and above that, they are also assassinating municipal employees, especially engineers, and also there's a lot of violence amongst the groups themselves. So it is a policy issue that has now morphed and started taking its own form. It was started as a small policy problem of closing contractor development programs because we were no longer allowing set-asides, a decision that was made by Treasury some almost 20 years ago now.
And then, Gundo, I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, we also understand that it's actually perpetuated by the issue of foreign-owned business shops as well. And what I find interesting in relation to your previous answer there is that communities, as well as law enforcement and government entities, are actually aware of these culprits, yet they fail to take the necessary steps. So what do you think is hindering them on taking action against these mafias?
Yes, you are right to say that some of it has even started affecting the smaller businesses and especially in townships and informal settlements. What has made it complicated is that in many instances, law enforcement agencies are involved because there are certain areas that are so small, and you'll find there's a small police station, but everybody who owns a business is paying a fee every month. And what then happens is that it's not just one solid group. There will be a second group. So one business person ends up having to pay everyone. So when you don't pay, they will kill 2 or 3 business owners to just demonstrate how that they are serious, and everyone ends up paying. So it is actually, on construction sites, you find different levels of it. Others, it's genuine concerns that the local municipality or government entity that is doing work in the area is overlooking local subcontractors to do work. Then you find the more sophisticated cases where there's a network of just people who are hired to do these disruptions or even to assassinate or intimidate. And the challenge is some don't want to do work. So if they are actually given that 30% of work and we determine that this is the work you can do, they will tell you, you just buy me out and you give me the money in cash. I don't want to do work. So if a contractor is tricked into paying that amount, another group will come with the same demand. So it just becomes impossible. So there's a lot of construction projects that have been disrupted in this way.
You know, Gundo, as we head to the elections, I mean, I've had multiple debates with various entities as well as communities around this issue. I mean, the issue of these syndicates has become quite a focal point in that it actually hinders on the vital service delivery as well as economic growth. So talk to us about this, because a lot of people are not aware that if, of course, these construction mafias are actually demanding certain fees as well as protection fees, they are actually directly hindering on services being granted to those that are most reliant on essential services.
Yes, you're right. So you'll find most of the capital projects that are done by local government, they come from grants that a municipality gets. It comes from the national fiscus based on the needs within a municipality and the economic profile of the area, including demographics, population. They get a certain amount. And for example, a municipality gets 100 million rands. You have got 12 months to finish 100 million rands. So you've budgeted that your projects are going to use that amount. So then when the construction mafia start stopping the projects, you will end up having spent only a fraction of that amount. And that means the money must now go back to the national fiscus. So it's a human rights issue in the sense that this area has been determined to have a certain amount of need in terms of services and backlogs. And when people do not get those services or that infrastructure provided for them, there seem not to be a remedy to say, should we be getting a company from the government which is used to do these things, or should we get police in? Because a contractor is going to claim, if I am a contractor, I'm given a job by the government department or municipality, and for some reason I'm no longer able to execute the work because of the community. If you are using a GCC or JBCC contract, you can actually sit down and say, for the time I have not been able to do work, this has been my loss because I've got so many employees, I've got this equipment. In fact, in many instances, it's written into the contract, so you can determine the standing time. So you get projects with cost overruns and projects where the money has to be paid to a contractor who has not done the work because the community would not allow them to do work.